Hello and welcome to another episode of The Fifth Floor, a podcast about creativity, art, and photography. My name is Athina and I am your host. So there is this idea, or maybe perception, that photography is a record of the truth. Traditionally, photography has been seen as an objective way of recording reality. This is based on the belief that the camera does not lie, that it captures a moment exactly as it was. Think about photojournalism, for example. It relies on this assumption to convey facts, used as evidence in the media, in history, even in courts. And then there is documentary photography, which also claims to show real life, often aiming to provoke empathy or inspire action. But is that actually true? Do photography and truth really go hand in hand? Well, let's dive a little deeper into that. So today, we're talking about photography and truth, and mixing in a bit of authenticity along the way. So let's begin with a simple question. What is the truth? Broadly speaking, we could say truth is a factual or objective representation of reality, what actually happened. But how objective can a photograph really be when the camera is held by a human? A human with their own opinions, experiences, background, ideas and taste, their own perspective, memories, even biases and emotions. So even if a photograph captures a real scene, it is always framed, chosen, and open to interpretation. But here's where the idea of objectivity starts to fall apart, because every choice a photographer makes already shapes what we see as truth. So let's look at a few examples of those limits to objectivity. The first one is framing. What's left out of the frame completely changes the story. A peaceful protest might look violent if the camera focuses only on a clash, or vice versa. What we don't see can be just as powerful as what we do. Then we have perspective. The photographer's point of view matters. Where you stand, how high or low you position the camera, and what you focus on, all of that shapes perception. Think of war photography. A photo taken from a soldier's trench feels completely different from one taken from above or from the safety of a newsroom. Then we have timing. A photograph captures a fraction of a second, not what happened before or after. A smile might hide tears a moment later, or an explosion might seem sudden when in reality it followed hours of tension. Then we have editing. Cropping, color correction, even subtle adjustments to light or shadow can alter meaning. And it is not just digital photography. Even in the darkroom days, photographers manipulated exposure and contrast to guide emotion and focus. Then we have curation. The way photos are presented changes their story. One image next to another can completely shift interpretation, like how a series in a gallery or a newspaper layout can create a narrative that each photo alone doesn't tell. And finally, intent. The photographer's purpose influences everything. Are they documenting, persuading, or provoking emotion? The intention behind the lens shapes how truth is constructed and communicated. So while photographs are essentially created by light, reflecting off a real scene, they can't really be neutral or 100% objective. They are always shaped by human choices, context, and interpretation. And that is why different genres of photography have very different tolerances for manipulation or subjectivity. Let's look at some examples. Photojournalism. Here, resisting manipulation or staging a scene is key. Alter an image and you risk breaking trust because the whole point is to show what really happened. Art photography. Totally different story. Manipulation is not just allowed, it is often celebrated. The photographer's vision, creativity, and expression take center stage. Documentary. Kind of in the middle. The goal is to show reality, but there is room for interpretation and storytelling choices. Social media. Everything's curated and filtered. It is less about strict truth and more about storytelling, aesthetics, or the vibe the poster wants to create. And then AI. Now this is a whole new game. We touched on this a bit back in episode 2 when we talked about AI and creativity. Can something digitally created or heavily altered ever really show reality? Or is it just a new way of making images that express ideas instead of facts? And now let's shift the conversation a bit to authenticity. How is authenticity different from truth? And why does it matter in photography? Broadly speaking, authenticity is a sense of genuineness, sincerity, or emotional honesty. It is not necessarily about being factually accurate. It is more what it feels real or true in an emotional sense. So what does that mean in practice? How does authenticity compare to truth in photography? Can something be authentic but not true? Is authenticity sometimes a performance in photography? What role does trust play in how we view photos? The key difference is this. Photographic truth refers to accuracy, what actually happened. Authenticity, on the other hand, refers to a sense of honesty or emotional resonance. Here's the interesting part. A photo can be true but not authentic, or authentic but not true. Let me explain. True but not authentic. A real event photographed in a way that feels staged or artificial. It is factually correct but emotionally disconnected. Authentic but not true. A fictional or posed image that conveys genuine emotion or experience. A classic example is Steve McCurry's Afghan Girl. She's a real person in a real refugee camp, but as said, the photo was carefully posed. It is authentic in the emotional impact it conveys, even if it is not purely documentary true. In the end, authenticity often matters more for emotional impact than factual accuracy. A photograph can resonate, move us, or tell a story if it is not completely true in the strictest sense. Okay, now on a personal note, I mostly do art photography because my main interest is not in capturing literal truth, but in representing emotions, ideas, and stories. For me, the impact and resonance of the image matter more than factual accuracy. And I would also want to make a quick disclaimer about ethics, which we didn't touch upon in this episode. Ethics is a huge topic and probably deserves its own full episode, and so I didn't want to just squeeze it in here. So today, I'm not here to debate right or wrong. I'm here to challenge the assumption that photography automatically equals truth. So in conclusion, we would say that photography doesn't guarantee truth. A photo can show real experiences and real emotions, but it is always shaped by choices. What it's framed, how it's edited, the context, and even how we look at it. The power of photography is not in strict accuracy, it is in how it moves us, makes us think, and connects us to stories. Photos invite us to look closer, ask questions, and think about perspective, context, and intention. So next time you see an image, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what is the story behind it? And what is it really showing? Okay, but before you go, and if this has helped you in any way, please send it to one friend who needs to hear this today. And never forget in your life that we have a new podcast every Wednesday. To visit fifthfloor.me and subscribe to our newsletter to get updates. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and share if you liked and leave a review. If you're listening via YouTube, please subscribe and share any topics you wish us to discuss or to expand on more. Okay, bye for now and thank you for being here. See you on the next one.